Greetings. My name is Doug Carey, Director of Fulton County Schools Capital Planning Department. I'm part of the team that helps plan for new school construction, renovations for existing schools, and facility improvements we envision for the future. If you've been involved in our work, you might remember my voice from a similar video last year on educational specifications. Like that project, our goal today is to familiarize you with our facility planning process, including the recent educational and conditions assessment of all schools and buildings owned by Fulton County School System. And like the Education Specifications Update project, we'll be sharing information and then asking for your input. As we get started, I want to point out that there are some helpful background resources on the website where you found this video. You'll also find the report from our recent assessments as well as a feedback survey. You can also watch a presentation given to our Fulton County Board of Education on March 9th of this year. What I'll be going over today is basically the same information, but we consolidated some parts to make it easier to view. This online presentation is part of an engagement process that seeks to get your thoughts on where we should focus our facility master plan priorities. We'll be surveying key stakeholder groups such as parents, teachers and staff, elected officials, and civic leaders. So thank you for being involved in this process. Your opinions are important. Let me start by showing how the facility planning process fits into the broader picture. Every 5 years, Fulton creates a capital plan to address facility improvements as well as technology, transportation, furniture, and safety upgrades needed to support learning. I've mentioned educational specifications, or EdSpecs as we call them, a few times because that project update was the first step to begin creating the facility plan. The EdSpecs project, which is that first oval highlighted in blue, focused on making sure we have up-to-date standards and consistency in our buildings across the school system. The second column of ovals, highlighted in yellow, shows our efforts to review all facilities owned by Fulton County Schools. We've had special teams visit every building to assess its physical condition and how well it supports learning and teaching. Everything colored in burgundy in this graphic relates to creating our facility master plan. And as you can see, the facility plan is part of the entire capital plan. It is important to note that the information we're sharing today is just the data from those assessments. It's not a list of improvements for the future. We are still working toward creating a facility plan, and that's where we will address some of those inquiries. This assessment project officially began in 2019 when Fulton County Schools issued a request for proposal to find a firm to evaluate our buildings and help create a facility master plan. The burgundy graphics at the top illustrate the timetable guiding our work. MGT Consulting and Parsons were selected for their extensive knowledge and work in this specialized area. Using our EdSpec standards, they performed an educational adequacy assessment of each school. That work is highlighted in blue. Assessors went building by building to see how our schools stack up against our board-approved standards. For prototype designs, which are used in many elementary and middle schools, we picked one or two to evaluate because they are constructed almost identically. Highlighted in green, you'll see how the facility condition assessment was conducted. That's where our assessors collected data about the systems and components within each building. They documented what was working properly or holding up well and what might be close to the end of its life cycle. Over the course of 3 months, from March to June of 2020, the teams completed 100 facility condition assessments and 93 educational adequacy assessments. They toured just over 15 million square feet of buildings throughout the school system. But it wasn't without some hiccups. The teams have been at work for just under 2 weeks when the pandemic hit, and all Fulton County schools and office buildings closed their doors, and everyone moved to remote learning, teaching, and working. This took some creative scheduling, but the teams were able to successfully tour the buildings, talk with school leaders, building supervisors, and maintenance and facilities personnel. They gathered additional data about the condition of each building and its systems and entered it into a database. Now let's look at the tools they used to make those evaluations. When determining a school's educational adequacy, the MGT and Parsons team looked at 4 things: environment, size, location, and storage and equipment. For environment, the teams looked at the classrooms. For example, do they have enough light? Do the heating and cooling systems work? Does the school look inviting, such as having paint and flooring in good condition? As for size, are the rooms the right size suggested by our ed specs? Do they meet the standards or are they reasonably close? We know that not every space will be the same since our schools are of various ages or have unique topographies, but we look to see if they're reasonably close to the ideal. The teams also looked at location, what we in the education facility business call adjacencies. They looked at how well spaces pair together and which do not. For example, is the media center in a place where it is easily accessible by students and teachers? Are noisy spaces like gymnasiums, music rooms, and cafeterias in a location where they will distract from learning? And finally, the teams looked at the storage spaces and fixed equipment to see if the rooms were outfitted appropriately. Is there suitable storage space? Is the room equipped with the right things that teachers need, like whiteboards, sinks, and cabinets? Scores were reported similar to a grading scale, where anything 90 or greater is considered excellent and 60 or below is considered very poor. Let's dive in even deeper. What you see here are two assessment tools used by our evaluation teams. One is the Facility Condition Index, or FCI, and the other is the Facility Condition Assessment Score, or FCA. FCI uses a formula to evaluate a facility's repair and renewal needs against the cost to just replace it. Sometimes it's more cost-effective to replace a building than to make extensive repairs or renovations. Normally, a high score indicates positive things, but not in this case. FCI is reported in a percentage, and higher scores mean that the building needs extensive work. FCA, however, is a different way of interpreting the same data. It is a conversion of the FCI percentage to a 100-point scale. The FCA score is sometimes easier to understand since it is scored on a grading scale like the Educational Adequacy Assessment. Higher scores are better. Buildings with scores 90 or above are considered in excellent condition, whereas those 60 or below are considered in very poor condition. During their facility tours, the assessment teams looked at all of the building systems you see here to evaluate whether they've reached the end of their life cycle or how far off that might be. When looking at potential renovations, the district must prioritize systems as either critical or non-critical. Both are important, but critical systems are those that most impact learning and teaching. We call them warm, safe, and dry systems. For example, if a school's HVAC system isn't working or a roof is leaking, then students aren't in an optimal learning environment. On the other hand, non-critical systems are more aesthetic. Examples would be refreshing the paint in a classroom or hallway or replacing cabinets in a science lab. Non-critical items still need to be replaced or improved, but they can be prioritized lower since they may not directly affect the ability to teach and learn. Fortunately, the majority of our school buildings are in excellent or good shape according to the assessment team. The average score was 87.4 for the facility condition assessments and 87.0 for the educational adequacy assessments. That's a solid B+. This illustrates how well Fulton County Schools has taken care of its buildings over the years, and we credit this success to our Fulton County voters who approved the one-penny education sales tax, SPLOST. SPLOST is a vital funding source to our capital program. But although 71 schools are in excellent or good condition, 29 schools fall into the fair, poor, or very poor categories. This means there is still some significant needs that need to be addressed in the next facility master plan. As a reminder, there is not a plan or any recommendations at this point. Our capital planning team is still sorting through the data. We are also asking the community for input. You can give your feedback at the end of this video. We hope that you'll take time to share some thoughts. Something interesting to note is the average age of a Fulton County school is 28 years old and was built in 1997. By comparison, the average across Georgia is 40 years old. Explosive enrollment growth in the 1990s and 2000s also led to 51 new or replacement schools being built in those 2 decades alone. This just shows how well our facility master planning process works. Facility improvements are identified and addressed, and new schools are built where and when needed. Thank you again, Fulton County voters, for your support of the Education SPLOST and for being part of the process to create our facility plan. Fulton County Schools is fortunate to have so many schools in good condition, but without future investment, they won't stay that way. Right now, our district average facility condition assessment score is 87.4, a strong B+. But if we don't continue to improve our schools, we'll go from a B+ to a C+ by 2025, and a C+ to a D+ by 2029, and to an F by 2031. You get the picture. Not only is facility decline bad for our students, but like any issue, the longer you wait to address it, the more expensive it becomes. These charts do a good job of showing how our current improvement needs are categorized, along with an estimate of their cost. It's common to only notice what's right in front of us, the condition of the carpet, paint in the classroom, or bumpy pavement. But if you look at the green column, you will see that the majority of facility improvements are the things that people don't even see, like HVAC systems or roofing. Those are critical systems, and they are often the most expensive and the most important to address first. I've mentioned priorities and funding a few times now, so let's take a look at the numbers. In gray, you'll see estimates for what it would cost to make improvements throughout the district. Adding all schools and non-instructional facilities together, there is nearly $396 million in need right now. That's outlined in red. Looking at the next 5-year capital plan, an additional $414 million would be needed. That's outlined in yellow. And although we projected ahead to 2032, we are only focused on the next 5 years for our capital plan. Having so many years of data, though, will help give us a head start on planning and seeing what we can do now to better maintain our facilities. So where do we go from here? The facility master planning process is like a large puzzle with many pieces, and this puzzle cannot be completed until we have the final piece, which is your input. In just a few moments, this presentation will end, and you'll be asked to participate in a survey. It will be brief, we promise. Your feedback will be used with the assessment data to help us focus the facility plan. And in June, we will share the improvement projects that will be part of the plan. And finally, over the next few months, Fulton County Schools will debut its overall 5-year capital plan, which includes this facility plan. As good stewards of your taxpayer dollars, the district will assess the funding needs and will present a priority list so that every penny is planned for and spent wisely. This was a lot of information, and I thank you again for your time and attention. Have a great rest of your day.